I love it when inspiration turns to motivation and you mix that with a little fear. Great photographers can take fantastic portraits. When I watched Glyn Dewis, how I made these portraits complete workflow, I was totally inspired. And then I was motivated, and then fear began to kick in. Could I make a Glyn Dewis inspired portrait with the equipment that I have around? Couple that with my newbie-ish skills in Lightroom and Photoshop? Let's give it a try. Glyn is gracious enough to tell us what's in his portable kit for taking portraits. He uses the Sony a7R IV, an 85mm G Master lens, the SJ80 Mark II circular flash, the FJ-X3 remote trigger, a rapid box switch beauty dish, a silver reflector, the X-Drop Pro background, and then of course the classic gray canvas. When you add it all up, it is $6,880. Wow! Of course, Glyn is a true professional who has been practicing his craft for years. Let's take a look at the equipment that we're going to use to take our awesome portrait. For my kit, I will be using the Sony a7C. We are going to shoot on the 28 to 75, and I will have it cranked all the way to 75. For my light source, I will be using the Genere SPE 365D. This light is discontinued. To soften the light, I've put on an angular softbox with an egg crate on the front of it. I don't have a background to hold up my backdrop, so I will use two C-clamps that'll go onto a windowsill, and then my backdrop, because I don't have one, is going to be my college blanket that I got for wrestling. I don't have a silver reflector, so what I did is I looked up, noticed I could take down one of my tiles, and I will literally be using a white ceiling tile as my reflector. Think of all the money I'm saving. When we add this all up, I have $2,845 worth of equipment. Now, the majority of that is really in one camera and one lens, and I am completely thrilled to say that this guy saved up for that. Glyn Dewis is in the premier league of equipment for what he's doing, where I am more like in tier 4 development level for what I am trying to do. But can I still take a good portrait with this equipment? Let's go check out my setup. Now I've got to turn my YouTube studio into a portrait studio. First thing I want to do is block out all of the natural sunlight. So I take a couple of blankets and I stuff those into the window. Then I hang my college blanket using the two C-stands. Take an old scissors clamp that I have and attach my Genere light with the angular softbox to the ceiling. I place a small chair for my portrait. I attach an external monitor behind the camera so I can see what I'm doing, and then I go and turn off all the basement lights. I practice using the ceiling tile as a silver reflector, and guess what? It worked exceptionally well. You can see how there is no light under my chin, and then when I pull it up, you can see how it fills in the spot underneath my chin. And then I called up a friend and I was like, hey, if you're free, would you be willing to come over and sit for a portrait? And he said yes. We took about 36 pictures during our portrait session. Out of those 36, 5 of them were a hit. Let's take the best picture and bring that into Lightroom and see if we can make ours look as good as Glyn's did. With our best photo collected, we're gonna take our beginner to intermediate skills and jump right in to Lightroom. First thing I wanna do is go and click on the AI, select, and we are going to select all of the things for his eyebrows, lips, hair, and then make sure you hit create masks. I'm going to start with the face, drag the slider down just a little bit. Then I want to bring the contrast up. I definitely want to bring the shadows up a little bit and then bring the whites out as well. One of the things I like to tell my students when working in Lightroom is play with the slider. Grab something like exposure, drag it one way to see what it does, drag it back. This way you learn what it does and it is kind of fun. Next, I want to go work on the eyes. I want the eyes to come out to make the portrait come to life. I select the eyeballs. I want to raise the exposure, not too much, just enough to bring the eyes out of the shadows a little bit. Want to raise everything up. If you go too far, it's not going to be good. Click on the pupil of the eye. Same thing here. I really want to bring the whites up. What I want to do next is to create 2 linear gradients to make the bottom half of the whole portrait just go into complete blacks. And we're going to go exposure all the way, shadows all the way. Let's create one more. Crush the exposure and crush the shadows. I want to sharpen up the eyes a little bit, so I'm going to create 2 masks, one for each eye, and then sharpen them. And let's take our brush tool and just brush the eye. Let's add a little bit more texture, but not too much. What we really want to do is click on the sharpen. Let's go create another brush, and we'll do it now with the other eye, and we'll bring up the sharpening. Our portrait has improved a ton by making these minor changes into Lightroom. As I watched Glyn Dewis do his portrait Photoshop, I was amazed at how good he was, at all the skills and details that he brought into this. As someone who's in that beginner to intermediate stage, there was one skill that I liked in particular that I wanted to bring to this portrait. So let's jump into Photoshop and do that skill. Go down to your picture, right-click, Edit in, Adobe Photoshop. With my picture in Photoshop, I want to go down to the right-hand corner and duplicate the layer. With my layer duplicated, I want to go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Put the radius at around 20%. Thank you, Glenn. Click OK. Go down to the right-hand corner and add a layer. Using the brush tool, I want to brush just the contours of his face. I'm going to start brushing away right there on the light and shadow line on his chin so we can create that fake depth of field. It'll look great. We'll go up here to the hairline a little bit. And now there are the eyes, looking very clear. Wow, our portrait looks fantastic. One more thing to do, let's go back into Lightroom. How do we get it there? It's so easy. We go over to File and we click on Save. With our photo now back into Lightroom, first thing I want to do is crop it to make it a better image. So now I'm going to go back to the AI. I'm going to select the masks and then person, and then select all of them. Selected, I'm going to go right to the face, and we're just going to drag the exposure down a little bit. There it is. He's looking gritty. It's looking like a great portrait. And there you have it, our finished portrait using the Glyn Dewis style to create a portrait. When I think of the pros and cons, well, Glyn actually wins. He's got a great camera, he's got a great lens, a fantastic flash, he's got a reflector that actually works, and his own stylized backdrop. Plus, years and years of how to create portraits. I think as a beginner to intermediate photographer taking a portrait, we were able to level up a ton. Not only did we max out in many ways the A7C and the Tamron 28-75 2.8 lens, we were able to use the creativity around us in our lighting, in our reflector, a ceiling tile, and by using a creative backdrop as a simple black blanket. As hungry, growing photographers, leave a comment down below about your favorite DIY piece of equipment that you have created or used on any of your shoots. Stick around for another great video to teach you more about photography and having fun learning the basics. Keep taking photos, and we'll see you in the next one.